everybody. I am Andrew Hayward. I'm senior writer at Decrypt, and we are here to talk about the future of NFTs. Can everyone please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Scottie. I'm a co-founder of Orichal Partners. We incubated a few projects, but mainly we're here to talk about the future of NFTs. So I've been spending a lot of time just advising different entertainment companies around the world in terms of how to incorporate blockchain and NFT to advance what they're doing right now. We're building a few other platforms that are actually has to do with metaverse. So a pleasure to be here to talk to you all.
What's up, everybody? It's amazing to be here in Miami. I'm Jiho. I'm a co-founder of Mavis. We're the inventors, the creators of Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity is the #1 NFT project of all time. We've done over $3.8 billion in volume on our NFT marketplace. We have 2.8 million daily active users. Yeah, if you've never heard about Axie before, it's built to be a very accessible way to get into crypto. Axies are pets that you can battle, you can breed them, you can collect them. It's very nostalgic, similar to games that we grew up playing, like Tamagotchi and Pokemon. At Mavis, I do community and economy related work. Glad to be here.
Hey everyone, I'm Anthony. I run a fund, Innovating Capital, based in New York and Greenwich, Connecticut. Also co-founder of Pastel Network. Pastel is a layer 1 blockchain. It's been application built for the sole use case of NFTs. I'm looking to solve upon a lot of the problems related to NFT-specific metadata storage, as well as certifiable rareness, copyright infringement, duplicates, scams, etc.
Hey everyone, my name is Stark. I'm co-founder of HypeX. What we do is we tokenize sneakers so people can trade, play, and earn in the metaverse. So if you guys see us, the golden sneaker sculpture outside, it's us. Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, sneaker.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Thank you. Thanks for coming. All right, so thank you for the intros. Before we look forward, let's very briefly look back at the evolution that we've had in the NFT space so far over the last few years. You know, they've just boomed this year in a big way, but there's already been some advancement and some evolution. Can you guys speak a little bit about where we've come so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to kind of see where things are. Obviously, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of technology advancements in the space. How we kind of see NFTs today, is really a world of digital collectibles, right? And I think, collections of 10,000 and whatnot, and obviously now moving towards a lot of assets in the metaverse. But I think quite quickly, what we're going to see is a lot of the foundational changes from technology start to support broader different types of NFTs, whether that's fractional ownership, whether that's indices, NFT-specific funds, and then as well as other applications beyond that. Credit markets, financials, big data, identity, things like that will start to really leverage a lot of these NFT standards that have been built over the last several years.
It's been an amazing journey so far. I remember, so I joined the CryptoKitties community 4 years ago. That was my entrance into NFTs, into crypto. I think, right, like in those early days, there was no utility, right? Like you could basically look at your NFTs and kind of collect them. That was mainly it. We've made a lot of progress, but it's still, right, we still have a lack of utility-driven projects, whether that be in gaming or collectibles. So yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, like, by what I've chosen to work on, I've shown that I believe that gaming will be the gateway for mass adoption, everyday people to get into crypto. We're already seeing this with Axie, where 50% of our users have never used blockchain before. 25% have never even had a bank account. So I think that gaming is really going to be the thing that gets crypto into the hands of the people that really need it to do, right? We only have one viable functioning game in the ecosystem right now. I know that there are a lot of kind of under development, and that so I think that there's going to be a lot of progress, but it's still incredibly early, and there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, utility is one of those recent trends. It feels like you can't just release profile pictures. There have to be perks and benefits, and they have to be a key to a metaverse thing, or whatever it is. Besides utility, as that's growing, what other short-term trends are you expecting in the NFT space in the next year or two to come?
I can talk a little bit about the social side of things. I think for me, I think social media and the social aspect is going to drive the next adoption in blockchain through NFTs. I'm talking to a lot of different entertainment companies. They are building metaverse, not just buying and selling real estate, but they're really seeing from a point of view of content, right? Almost virtual real estate, the way I think about it is property slash almost social media space. They're thinking about from a content point of view where people can actually buy and sell and rent ad space around the metaverse, where they're actually projecting content, almost like a metaverse type of YouTube. So there's a lot of things that these are the trends that I'm seeing that they're working on. Of course, today we're seeing a lot of profile pics, but I think the next stage is going to be access to content. Being able to own a piece of land or even imagine YouTube. You can actually invest into a video, and that's NFT format where there's still royalties going back to the creator. But if I see a video that's going viral, I can actually support it financially, right? So I think that's kind of the future for the next 2 years. I think we're going to get there.
Let's get everyone in on this one. If you guys have a view, short-term trends and changes ahead.
Yeah, I think touching on that point as well, the biggest thing is ownership as membership, whether that's membership to a community. We saw that with Bored Apes. And kind of going back to your point, a couple years ago, you go buy a rare Pepe, you go buy a CryptoKitty, there wasn't really any sort of kind of intrinsic utility associated with it. But then also things, as I was touching on before, fractional ownership, being able to go out and kind of pool liquidity to go acquire a particular collection or a particular NFT. One thing that I think has been kind of interesting to see take off so quickly is that the NFT world the crypto world in general is supposed to be democratizing access to assets and different types of forms of wealth. But so quickly, some of these collections, like a punk, the floor has just skyrocketed, and people have basically been just completely almost cornered out of the market, right? So some of these advancements in fractional ownership or indices and funds, I think, are really exciting advancements, just in terms of kind of resetting the playing field a little bit, making sure that we can continue to democratize access to certain of these assets as well.
Something that I'm seeing is that NFTs are much easier to market than the rest of crypto, right? NFTs are content. They're almost inherently viral, right? So what we're starting to see is, okay, like if you're a streamer, you're a YouTuber, you're a TikToker, and you want to get into crypto, and you want to have something, right, like you want to attach yourself to a project, you want to help build, it makes a lot more sense to try and join and attach your brand to an NFT project, right? So we're starting to see, even with Axie, right, we have streamers, we have YouTubers, we have TikTokers, we have the Axie sisters, the first NFT idol group. So we're starting to see, right, like, in my opinion, where the creators and the influencers, they choose to spend their time and what they choose to promote, that's actually what's going to become dominant. And I think this is what we're starting to see with NFTs versus DeFi, right? Has no distribution channel. NFTs are the distribution channel that DeFi has been looking for. So right now we just launched Katana, our own DEX. Automatically on day one, it was the second largest DEX in all of crypto. Why? Because we already have an engaged community. We already have distribution. So I think like basically NFT communities becoming the kingmakers of different projects and different infrastructure. I think that's where we're going to see more and more of that.
Yeah, totally agree. I feel like NFT definitely will be a good tool, for the celebrities, influencers to pop in, because, for like DeFi or those like traditional products, crypto projects, it is very hard for, those like influencers and celebrities working on it. But right now, as HypeX, we're collaborating with designers, so definitely it's a new way, celebrities and influencers could find their value in the cryptos.
Yeah, Jeff mentioned infrastructure, and that's a key word I wanted to touch on. Some of our blockchain platforms that we use today are already pushed to the limits, and gas fees are skyrocketing, and it makes it hard to use them. So what infrastructure do we need to enable the future of NFTs to onboard hundreds of millions or billions more people into the ecosystem?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's one part of the market that I think it kind of gets overlooked. It's not as sexy as going out and buying a collection of apes or punks, right? But the infrastructure is super important. Right now, we've been super reliant upon what I would view as general purpose blockchains, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, etc. And those applications are fantastic. They're great for fungible tokens. They're great for the world of DeFi. But for certain low velocity, high data integrity type applications like NFTs, it's important to really think through the different types of infrastructure and scaling challenges associated with it. Storage is one of those areas where people tend to overlook it. What are you actually buying when you go and acquire an NFT, other than basically a piece of code with a link to where that data might be hosted or stored? So having a blockchain or a storage solution that can really take this data and have intrinsic integrity on chain in a way that's completely redundant, completely decentralized, completely secure. Seeing a lot of great progress in terms of certain ZK rollups and other scaling solutions as well to help with some of that off-chain transaction, on-chain settlement process, maximizing how to roll up transactions, compress them, and basically conform more and more and more per what I would view as kind of a tight block supply. But definitely infrastructure needs are pretty prevalent today.
We've made a lot of progress. I will say, that alternative layer 1s, layer 2s, and side chains, there's been a lot of work. There's been a lot of progress. We have our own. It's called Ronin. We have 2 million downloads of the Ronin wallet, for example. There's definitely a far way to go. A lot of it is also just basic payment infrastructure, right? Oftentimes your credit card will get declined when you try to buy crypto, so that's something that I think definitely needs to be improved. But yeah, I will say that there's a lot of obvious infrastructure upgrades, and to me, infrastructure upgrades are very boring. They're just something that I expect over time. Just like you don't, right? When I first started playing StarCraft in 1998, nobody could call my house when I was playing StarCraft because I was using the internet, right? That's how the internet used to work. So that's obviously horrible user experience. But things like that, they get smoothed out over the long run by amazing engineers and builders. I think what I like to focus on are what are the benefits of this technology, right? Even if there are a lot of hurdles, if you have a concrete benefit and an amazing community, an incredibly fun experience, right? It's the potential to potentially earn something of real value, right? These benefits, I think, can get people to overcome a lot of these hurdles. And that's what we've seen with our community, where it's still very incredibly hard to get started with Axie, yet somehow 3 million people, or 2.8 million people play every day. So I think that's also a lesson from our story.
Well, I think for crypto this is the incredible part about crypto, right? I came from the traditional finance space of 5-6 years ago, right? Whereas investment, you just invest, but you're not participating. You're not necessarily participating into the technology. Where we are right now with NFT, right? Be it DeFi, NFT, you are actually participating in. You got to learn about the technology. Right, and yes, you're owning the token to use the technology, but it's also an investment. So I think at the very least, just like any science or any technology that you're supporting, biotech or anything like that, we have a common goal. We're trying to advance whatever we're doing. It's worth participating and supporting it, right? And then, I think the panelists talk a little bit about the protocols, and I think for me, I would like to also focus on the front end, especially for NFTs type of play. How do we make it easier for people to on-ramp? I'm the founder of Doko, where it's a cross-chain NFT dashboard where you can actually manage all your NFTs in one place, not just from a display point of view, but you can actually manage and actually get all the data analytics. We're focusing on virtual lands and whatnot. So I think on the front end side, if we can solve that issue where I don't have to plug in, a MetaMask, and then I got to plug in Phantom Wallet. It's incredibly hard to kind of see all my stuff in one place. right? And also manage access and actually see my friends who they have it and interact it in the same way that we interact with each other on Facebook or Instagram. So I think that's something that I would like to see more, and we're working on that as well.
Yeah, just to add on top of that, I feel like it's definitely user experiences, especially for the payment, because for non-crypto people, like to educate them to use the wallets, it's definitely a barrier for them. So therefore, I think in order to let more people to play in the NFT world, definitely the payment will be a essential tool. People can use the PayPal, can use the credit card to purchasing the NFT directly, like NBA Top Shot, right? So,
So going on from that point, I guess the big question is Ethereum the answer? Is Ethereum going to prevail in this, either through Ethereum 2.0 or layer 2 solutions, or are we going to start moving on to other platforms and see ETH dominance decline over the years?
I think it's definitely too early to make a singular bet on this. Obviously, there's kind of one of two outcomes here. ETH 2.0 comes out, sharding subsequently comes out, ZK rollups and other types of scaling solutions happen to really just take over and prove as dominant as they are, and a lot of that retention comes back in terms of just development mindshare onto Ethereum, and Ethereum is kind of that killer supercomputer to run any sort of application directly on top of that. I like to take kind of a slightly different stance in the sense of, we're going to see kind of a more multi-chain world. There's so many different development standards, so many different kind of smart contract or smart ticket standards out there, and I think we've seen a lot of movement towards some of this interoperability, and having specific chains, specific side chains serve particular functions and applications. A certain blockchain might be better for NFT-based storage. One might be better for actually just processing the exact transactions, or getting a loan on Compound. So I view this kind of world as definitely being more multi-chain, but definitely still early to tell.
Anyone else want to chime in on Ethereum's future?
I love Ethereum. I owe a lot to the Ethereum community. It's how I got started in crypto. With Axie, the Ronin bridge is the #1 Ethereum bridge by total TVL. I believe there's around $9 billion in it. So we see ourselves as very synergistic with the Ethereum community. I think that, so if we were to look at signs of Ethereum's decline, these are some things that I might look for, right? I would look for a new trend to start on another chain, right? Like, it's still, okay, DeFi was on Ethereum. NFTs, right? Ethereum, right? DAOs, also Ethereum. If we see a new category emerge, right, frontier tech, like something new from a different chain, then I'll start to think that maybe perhaps the winds are shifting. But right now, right, it's kind of cool, I guess, that there are a bunch of other chains out there. But a lot of them, right, they're just kind of copying things that already happened on Ethereum. So we'll see. I also think that like NFT specific chain will like these application specific and crafted chains will work. That's what we're doing with Ronin. We're looking to build the ideal side chain for launching a thriving digital economy, like an NFT game. But obviously, so then when you have a game, right, people are earning these resources. They want to be able to cash out. They don't want to have to go through all the friction of the bridge, right? So then it's like, okay, now we know our next feature. We need the DEX, right? And then it's like, okay, people are holding right their currencies now in their Ronin wallet. Well, what if they could be getting savings on that, right? So then it's like maybe we need a money market, right? Something like Aave or Compound is the next feature. So it's gonna be a long journey, but so far I actually haven't really seen much, in my opinion, other than declining market cap share, right, relative to some of the competing L1s and stuff like that. Like, I still see that all the frontier innovation happening in the Ethereum ecosystem, but if that starts to change, then we have to be open-minded.
So looking further ahead, maybe 5 or 10 years in the future, what are some of the NFT use cases that people aren't thinking about and aren't really considering at this point? What are ways that we can use NFTs that are better than whatever systems or solutions we have now?
Well, aside from gaming, I think again I've been talking to a lot of different entertainment industries. I think virtual real estate is interesting. People are buying it to build stuff to display their own things, but I think that's going to be. I see it as more of a social media space, a social media type of play, where you can actually drive traffic the same way that you do with your 2D accounts on Instagram. Ad space, access to content we talked about, right? I think that's a tradable subscription where, almost like what you see on YouTube or anything, that you're paying a subscription to access to a content of your favorite influencers. But what if your NFT is your subscription, right? Then it's a tradable subscription, and you can actually participate and support a content creator, not just a YouTuber, but a content creator, be it an animator, right? So I'm working on a project right now that's helping a friend of mine in college, my dorm mate in Hollywood. NFT allows him to do that, right? And that will be access to his comics, for example. So I think that's something that we're going to see more. Virtual real estate for me is also tradable subscription of social media contents. Those two.
I think that the next big social and political movements are going to come out of the NFT space, out of these emerging digital economies. We're starting to see these communities, right? Grassroots internet communities are getting more and more power, and they're starting to impact world events. We're already starting to have governments reaching out to us, asking, can you please educate us about Axie? Asking sometimes in some cases difficult questions, especially around taxes and whether their citizens are paying them while playing. So, we're going to see a lot of power, many different types of power, start to aggregate in these NFT communities, and they're going to start having huge impacts on the world. And I think that it will be possible in the next 10, 15 years for there to actually be physical nations that emerge from communities like Axie Infinity.
Yeah, I think the simple way to think about it is anything that can be an NFT will be an NFT. Think about all the different types of immutable, stale data objects that we interact with and encounter on a daily basis. It's almost hard to fathom. I mean, just listening to what you were just saying, it's crazy what to think in terms of what can actually happen with this technology in a great way and in an empowering way, in ways that we haven't necessarily ever even thought of or fathomed before, really. So it's going to be an exciting time. It's still very, very early and nascent, but a couple of other things that get me excited too is this bridge between DeFi and NFTs. Being able to leverage NFTs as pure collateral against a loan or things like that. Really kind of empowering back to the common individual the ability to engage in these sorts of peer-to-peer transactions without some of these central intermediaries that might click some sort of exorbitant fee.
Yeah, I feel like from gaming, fashion, or the physical assets, NFT definitely in the 5 years to 10 years will be the bridge to connect the physical world to the real world, to connect the real world to the metaverse. So I think definitely in the futures, those utility NFTs will play the major role in the NFT world.
Something that I hear a lot, especially on Twitter, is people saying, 90% of NFTs are going to go to zero, or 98% even. Just that, the fervor around NFTs and the extreme valuations that some of them have right now is just not sustainable. Do you believe that that's true? Are we going to get to a point where it's only going to be blue chips and cream of the crop stuff that retains its value, and a lot of it's just going to fall off?
There's a couple of different variables at play here, obviously, not to speculate on the market one way or the other, but the portion of people that are coming in and acquiring and trading NFTs today, it's still largely pretty dominant by crypto natives. So I think yes, there'll probably be some resetting of general NFT collections. You'll have the blue chip NFT collections and whatnot, but I think on the flip side, what's going to happen is you'll see a ton of onboarding and on-ramp from traditional non-crypto native users, artists, creators, collectors. So that'll partially offset maybe some of the challenges we're seeing from the exuberance now.
NFTs are inherently viral, so the flywheel is incredibly strong, right? So sometimes that will cause it to get overheated and overinflated, but that's a feature, not a bug of the system. I also think that market volatility is good because it creates character. You need to go through a bear market. You need to go through a bear market if you're in crypto. Like it's an experience. It's something that it's like when you're in a fraternity, right? You have to go through a hard time at the beginning as a pledge. You have to get hazed a little bit, right? This is something that actually I worry about a future where there are no bear markets, right? Because then it's like everyone just becomes kind of spoiled and doesn't really appreciate what's happening. So I think like, right, I'm okay with either scenario, to be honest. There are going to be opportunities created in both.
Just going off of that, I think we all, just like anything, I think you have to figure out what you don't want, right? You're not going to always figure out what you like, what you want. Just like graduating from college, you're going to figure out, you got to go through all these roles and figure out what you don't want. It's the same thing as products. You're going to have a lot of these NFTs going to zero or whatever, but then at least we all figure out what we don't want, or what doesn't work, right? And that's just the pathway of what to getting to our end goal, right? So that's kind of how I see it. So I don't necessarily either scenario is okay, but somebody should create like a NFT recycle machine or something. Someone could just chuck all the junk NFTs to and get like a platform token or something like that.
Like pollution, right? Eventually, right, will become a thing. So I think like crafting actually is really important, right? So I think like the first interop will actually be around crafting mechanisms, where it's like I actually see like interoperability, right? Using one asset or one NFT from another ecosystem in a different ecosystem. I actually see that as an interesting user acquisition or attack vector, right? It's like if you say if there's another project that was hypothetically bigger than Axie, I would give their NFTs utility within our universe to try and get their users, right? So I think that that'll also like become more of a trend actually. That a lot of the people building NFTs, like we grew up playing Diablo 2, playing around with the Horadric cube, if you guys remember that, and RuneScape crafting, right? So I think like that will also be really important because we also need these economic systems to be self-balancing and sustainable in the long run, and having some kind of like sync attached to the system is actually really, really important.
So we only have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to close on this one. I want to get everyone's view if we can. At what point do NFTs become just utterly mundane, like just a regular part of everyone's life? You know, how far out is that, and what's sort of the tipping point?
That's a hard question. I think, well, for NFT to become part of everyday lives, I mean, I don't think that's going to be anytime soon, but it's going to be, you know, I think within this decade, not everything is going to be like could be NFT. I think, right? There's certain things it could be NFT, like, you know, even your identity and whatnot, or your virtual identity or whatnot. There's a bunch of things that you could do, but I think in order for us to feel like what the destination that you describe is, again, I think there's going to be front end involved. There's going to be back end involved, where your family and all your friends they don't even realize that they're using NFTs. I think that's kind of where we should go to. There's a lot of development in the back end, you know. I think there's a lot more to do to go. I think we're going through that phase that we're figuring out what we don't want. Again, you know, we're NFTing a lot of different items, but I think we got to figure out, you know, until we hit that point where we don't even realize we're in the metaverse. We'll realize that whatever we're touching, that's actually blockchain enabled. That's when, you know, I think that's probably 3 or 5 years out to me, in my opinion.
I think that right now, these are the good old days, right? Like NFTs are going to become a part of everyday life. It's just a question of when. I think that, right, like we have to appreciate like these days when it's a grassroots movement, right? Everyone is a pretty tight-knit community of, right, like less than 10 million people. It's not that many people, right? It's, I think less than 5 million people that own NFTs in total right now. So these are very special times. And it just takes time to compound, because you cannot do like traditional paid marketing at scale, at least not yet, in NFTs, right? It has to be basically community driven. It has to be community building. That's kind of like the only distribution channel that works right now. I think that traditional paid advertising will eventually work once the products are a little bit more refined. That's also an infrastructure thing. Once we can solve all the infrastructure issues, right, and we figure out what are the benefits, right, play to earn, stack status, digital identities, things like that. Once we have that, and we have less friction, we can do traditional paid marketing, and the entire space is going to blow up.
Any last quick comment?
I think the one thing to just quickly mention is that the pace of change and the rate of innovation in this sector is just compounds and multiples that of any normal application I've ever seen. It's crazy. So I think that future is probably a lot closer than we think, 3, 5, 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's back to the question, why you need NFT? It doesn't make sense to NFTize everything. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.